Hello and welcome to this video in which I provide an introduction to longitudinal structural equation modeling and specifically to modeling change over time with growth curve models. My name is Geiser. I'm an instructor and statistical consultant with QuantFish. So what are latent growth curve models? Latent growth curve models are longitudinal confirmatory factor analysis models, or we could say longitudinal structural equation models that allow us to model change over time in repeated measures data. So repeated measures data is also known as longitudinal data, where we have multiple observations from the same people across time. For example, multiple observations of intelligence or emotions or life satisfaction or something like that. Typically, we would use the same measures repeatedly, for example, on 4 different measurement occasions. So here you can see the variables y1 through y4, which represent measured or observed variables for the same construct at different time points. So for example, this might represent the scores on the same intelligence test measured in the same people on 4 different measurement occasions. Here, for simplicity, I assume that the distances between the 4 time points are the same. So for example, maybe there was 1 year in between each time point or 6 months or something like that. But that need not be the case. So you can also have time points that are unequally spaced and you could still apply latent growth curve models. It just would be a little bit more complicated to set up the model properly. Now, in a latent growth curve model, then we have typically an intercept factor. The intercept factor has loadings on or effects on all indicators, and the loadings are all fixed to 1, which defines this factor as a random intercept factor. So this is similar to what you may know if you're familiar with multi-level models or hierarchical linear models where we have a random intercept. So the random intercept indicates the true score at time 1, and individuals can differ in their true initial intelligence scores. Some had higher scores, some had lower scores, and so the intercept factor represents the true intelligence, for example, after accounting for random measurement error at time 1. Also in the model is 1 or more slope or shape factors, and so you can see that that slope or shape factor has also an effect on all variables except the first one. So at time 1 there's no effect from the slope factor because at that time point no change has yet taken place because that's the first time point. But for the second time point, third time point, and fourth time point, we may expect that individual scores have changed, and so therefore the slope factor or shape factor has an effect there and quantifies the degree of inter-individual differences in change across time. So the slope factor gives us provides information about the rate of true change across time. And here in this example, my shape or slope factor is a linear shape factor by fixing the loadings to 1, 2, 3, meaning to t minus 1. So a loading of 0 on the first time point, a loading of 1 for the second time point, and then 2 and 3, which then means that growth or change is restricted to be linear in this model. Now, this need not be the case in growth curve models. You could leave the loading on y3 and the loading on y4 free to be estimated. So those effects, if they weren't fixed to 2 and 3 but freely estimated, then the shape of growth could be estimated directly from the data. And so this would be like a free growth model or something like that, or base curve model where the effect or the shape of change is undefined and determined from the data. Also, there are models that have more than one slope factor. So for example, if you wanted to model quadratic or U-shaped growth, then you would have to add another slope factor where the loadings would be t minus 1 squared. So this is a simple example where we're assuming linear growth for all individuals. The intercept and slope factors can be correlated, so we're typically estimating the covariance between the two as a free model parameter, and we also estimate their variances as a measure of individual differences in true scores at time 1 and individual differences in the rate of change. And also we estimate the means of the intercept and slope factors to quantify the average true score at time 1 and the average rate of change. And then finally, we have error variables epsilon for each time point, which quantify measurement error and time-specific influences that are not captured by the overall growth curve. This model can be captured also in terms of a single measurement equation where yt is equal to an intercept plus t minus 1 times the slope factor, so that is the slope loading, plus epsilon t, the measurement error variable. And you can see that there's no loading parameter here in this measurement equation because all loadings in the linear growth curve model are fixed. Also notice that there's no fixed intercept in this measurement equation, so we don't have an additive constant here, and that's because the intercept is random. So we have a random intercept and we have a random slope factor, and therefore the mean structure of the observed variables is determined fully by the intercept and slope factor means, and there's no additional intercept here that is estimated in this equation. Now, a growth curve model like this can be fit either as a confirmatory factor analysis model in programs for structural equation modeling such as Lavan, Jamovi, JASP, Mplus. All kinds of programs that can handle structural equation models can also handle latent growth curve models, or you can estimate the same model as a multi-level model, because this is a random coefficient regression model as this equation shows, and so you could estimate that in any program for hierarchical linear modeling or multi-level modeling. Any kind of program that can handle multi-level models could also handle a model like this. Now, the downside of estimating this as a random coefficient regression model is that you don't get the same number of fit statistics, you don't get the same information about model fit as you do with confirmatory factor analysis, and the confirmatory factor analysis framework is also more flexible when you have multivariate models with parallel growth processes, or when you have multiple indicator growth curve models, second order growth curve models, when you want to look at outcomes of the growth factors, when you want to run a multi-group analysis perhaps. So it's a lot more flexible to estimate these types of models within the confirmatory factor analysis / structural equation modeling frameworks. And I want to show you an example of how this is done in a point and click software that is free, which is JASP. And there you can see that it's very easy to estimate these types of models. And I also will walk you through the interpretation of the parameter estimates and other statistical output that we get from JASP. So here you can see the JASP program open on my computer. JASP is spelled J-A-S-P. You can download the program from the internet. It's free, it's all point and click and very easy to use. You can see I have a data file with 4 variables that you can see here at the bottom on the left hand side, y1, y2, y3, and y4. Those are hypothetical intelligence scores from the same people measured on 4 measurement occasions. The data are in so-called wide format, meaning that each time point here is represented by a separate variable, as opposed to long format where you would have only one variable indicating the score, and then you would have 4 different rows for each individual, or at least for those who have 4 time points. And then, so say you would have a nested data structure that you can then use with a multi-level type of analysis. So here we're going to use the CFA/SEM framework to estimate growth curve models. If you wanted to use the multi-level framework, you would have to transform the data into long format. So how do we do that in JASP? How do we estimate a growth curve model using the CFA framework? We can use JASP's SEM module, which uses the Lavaan package in R in the background. So it uses the Lavaan syntax for estimating these types of models, but it's all through point and click, which is convenient. And so when you click on the SEM module, you will find latent growth here as one option. And so you can click on that, and then you get a dialog window on the left-hand side where you can see here there's a bit of syntax at the top, but you don't have to worry about that. All you need to do is just simply select your 4 variables for the 4 time points. You click them over into this field, variables. Then you can see output appears on the right-hand side under results. And so right away, you get a table with model fit statistics, a chi-square test of model fit, which allows us to determine whether a linear growth curve model here fits the data well. That's the model that JASP estimates by default, a linear growth curve model like we've seen previously. You can see that the growth curve model has a chi-square value of 4.435, 5 degrees of freedom, and a p-value of 0.489, meaning the model is not rejected for the data because the chi-square is non-significant, so it fits these data well. Also, we get parameter estimates for the intercept and linear slope factor in the first table. So here we get the mean of the intercept factor, which is about 100. So the mean intelligence level in terms of true scores, in terms of latent scores, was 100, about 100 IQ points. And the variance here around the mean was 209, or about 210. So that is the variability in intelligence scores around that mean at time 1. We also get the mean and variance of the linear slope factor. And so the mean here tells us the average growth rate. And you can see it's a positive value of about 1.5, which indicates that per unit of time, the expected increase in intelligence was 1.5 points. So that's the average gain in intelligence between, for example, time 1 and time 2. Now, of course, this doesn't apply to all individuals because there's variability also in the change. You can see the variance here is about 10. So there was variability also in terms of how much people changed, and some people may not have changed at all, or they may have shown a decline. However, on average there was an increase, and that increase was 1.5 points. You can see from the standard error, z-statistic, and p-value that the increase on average was statistically significant, meaning that there was significant mean change in intelligence across time here. In this example, you can also see that we get confidence intervals for those parameter estimates as well, which is very nice that JASP provides that right away for us. Also, we get the covariance between intercept and slope. You can see it was negative. So there was a negative correlation between intercept and slope. That was also statistically significant. In order to make this more interpretable, we can request the standardized solution under estimation options, under additional output actually. So when we go to additional output and we go to standardized estimates, then we get the estimate of the correlation here on the right hand side, and not just the covariance, which is difficult to interpret because a covariance is not standardized. And so you can see that then when we go back to our table, now we get the standardized estimate here. And so the correlation between intercept and slope was negative 0.215, which is a lot more interpretable than the covariance. You can see now also these estimates here change to standardized. So you have to be careful because for those you typically want the unstandardized estimates. So you can always go back by unchecking that box here on the left hand side. Then we're going back to unstandardized parameter estimates here, and then also you get your covariance back. And then lastly, we get the error variances. So those are the variances of the epsilon error terms that are in our model. So those tell us about unreliability and also potential specific variance, that is time specific, for example, situational variance or person by situation interaction variance that is provided here. Now we can get some additional output. We can get additional fit measures, which is nice in CFA. So we can check the model fit in more detail. We can also get R squared here, and we could output the Lavan syntax. If you ever wanted to use Lavan, then you could look at the model statement to see how that works in this Lavan package in R. So you can see now we have additional fit measures such as a comparative fit index, root mean square error of approximation. Also the standardized root mean square residual is then provided, and they all here look good, so indicating that this model is a good fit. Also we get R squared, which tells us what proportion of the variance in each observed variable is accounted for by the intercept and slope factor, so by the growth curve. And you can see here over 80% of the observed variance is reflected by the growth factors, which also is an indication that the linear growth curve model fits the data well, because there's not a whole lot of unexplained variance, there's not a whole lot of unreliable variance here in these data, so that's nice. Also notice that you can change the model from linear to quadratic or even cubic, so you can test different types of growth curves. Here in this case the linear model fits so well that we don't need any more complicated growth curve, but this is also an option. You can choose between standard maximum likelihood standard errors or robust standard errors or even bootstrap standard errors. And then also here under plots you can get a curve plot where you can look at individual growth curves. And I'm going to lower the number of growth curves to 10 to make the plot less cluttered. Now you can see the curve plot with here just 10 curves, and you can see not everybody changed in the same way. Some people started out high at a high level here and they hardly changed at all. Some other people who also started out fairly high did increase. We had some people who showed a decline in their scores over time. We had some people who increased more than others. And we had some people at a lower level who didn't change at all pretty much. So you can see there was a lot of variability in both intercept scores and in the growth rate. And that's reflected in these variance parameter estimates that you can see here in this table, intercept variance and slope variance. So those are a reflection of those differences that we see here at the onset. So that's the intercept variance reflection. And then also in the steepness of the curves, we see some variation, and that's what's reflected in the slope factor variance estimate. You can also get a path diagram of the model when you click on model plot, where you can show this model as a path diagram if you like. Here it is, and you can see we have the intercept factor, the linear slope factor. We can show the parameter estimates in the plot by clicking here. And so then you will also get the loadings as well as the mean structure and the variance structure. Those are then imported here into the diagram. We can also show the means. And so it's not the most beautiful looking path diagram, but it may be something that you may be interested in. Under advanced, you can choose the estimation method. The default is full information maximum likelihood with missing data. So in our case, there was some missing data. So some people had only partial time points, or only some of those time points were recorded for them. And so those individuals can then still be used, because this whole method here is full information maximum likelihood, and it includes also cases with missing data. You can change that to listwise deletion, but I wouldn't recommend it, because it's better to include all available data if you can. Also, the estimator can be changed. The default is maximum likelihood for continuous outcome variables. If you had ordinal variables, we would use the diagonally weighted least squares estimator for ordinal items. So if you had, for example, 5-point Likert scale response variables, then maximum likelihood would probably not be appropriate, but you would rather use this diagonally weighted least squares estimator. I hope you found this video useful to learn more about longitudinal structural equation modeling and specifically latent growth curve modeling. My name is Geiser, and I'll see you in the next video.